Right, since the terror attacks on London Bridge, a lot of people have been talking about concealed carry licences for licensed shooters. For instance, Firearms UK contacted Cornwall Radio, and they made their opinions clear. And there was even a story in The Guardian talking about perhaps licensed gun owners being able to take up arms in such an event. And I wouldn't personally have a problem with an American-style CCW type system, with training and qualification and all the rest of it. Firearms owners in the UK go through a massive amount of checking as well as training if they're a club member. And of course they have medical checks done on them for their mental health as well as having to keep their guns locked away, etc. So firearms owners in the UK generally have to hold themselves to a much higher standard than a normal person because they've got a lot to lose. But from a political standpoint, we're jumping the gun a bit here. Excuse the pun. Simply because currently in the UK, we don't even have all of the police armed. So to suggest that the government are going to be willing to offer concealed carry licences for what are currently illegal firearms is it's deluded. Let's be honest, it's not going to happen. We need to start the argument where it starts. And where it starts is even the concept of private civilians being able to be in possession of objects with the intent of defending themselves. Currently, in the UK, you could legally walk around with a big mag-light torch if your intent was to be able to see where you were going. But if you were stopped by a police officer and you told him that you carried this large, heavy object because you're worried that somebody might attack you and you may need to defend yourself, then you're going to get arrested for possession of an offensive weapon. That's where we've got to as a country. Even the concept of self-defence is taboo. So, let's not go mad here talking about firearms, for goodness sake. So when people are putting this into the media, we're being portrayed as being fringe, eccentric, possibly a bit extremist. That isn't something we want the public to think about us, is it? Even if it is, a good argument, they're just not going to understand. They're just going to think you're mental. So I would propose for the legislation for firearms officers to be relaxed, allowing them to possess their firearms outside of their normal working hours. This would enable the police to get proper practice behind their firearm and to obtain good marksmanship and good muzzle discipline. Because it seems to me that firearms officers tend to have training concentrating on dealing with an assailant in terms of when you should pull the trigger, rather than how to pull the trigger. I know at my own club I've heard some real horror stories about the safety of police officers training there. And police officers are not trained to fight, they're trained to deal with usually one lone individual in a hostage situation or whatever. They're not trained to deal with hardened terrorists who are equally as well armed as they are and who know how to fight. And if you look at what happened in Westminster recently, the police fired 50 rounds just to shoot 3 men and accidentally shot a member of the public in the head. So this needs to be looked at. It's ridiculous, let's be honest. But secondly, I would propose that pepper spray is removed from Section 5 and made available to the public. I mean, even Section 1 or Section 2 firearms owners aren't allowed pepper spray, and pepper spray is non-lethal. It's just about the intent. They can't bear the concept of somebody wanting to defend their life and liberty. It was shameful to see members of the public recorded on mobile phones cowering inside bars just because 3 men armed with knives were on a rampage. That could have been dealt with by the first person they came across if they shot them in the face with pepper spray. Not that I'm saying pepper spray is perfect, but it could save many lives, especially as anyone can use it and there's no chance of anyone getting killed accidentally or otherwise. The public need to be assertive and take responsibility for their own safety and for the safety of others. Everyone talks about unity and stopping the terrorists from supposedly dividing us, but when the shit hits the fan, nobody is able to do anything. Let's get assertive here, let's get real. Terrorists don't want to divide us, they want to terrorise us. That's why it's called terrorism. They want to pressure us into making more and more allowance for extremism and to cower in a corner when threats presents itself. It's time for change. Now, I know some of you will be concerned with, well, it's not some of you, obviously, but some of the public will be concerned with criminals getting hold of pepper spray and using it too. But I say, so what? Isn't that preferable? Look at the problems we have with knife crime in the UK. Imagine if all those criminals or young men just trying to defend themselves from gangs, well, supposedly, that's what they say, but they instead opted for pepper spray. Our A&E departments would be full of people having milk poured into their eyes rather than having large gaping holes in their sternum. People seem to forget how dangerous knives are, and they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere. There's not an issue with getting hold of knives, yet there's a restriction on, just pepper spray, which, just stings a bit. But, if someone's trying to stab you and you spray them in the eyes with pepper spray from 10 yards away, they're not going to be able to stab you anymore because they won't be able to see and they won't be able to breathe. At the very least, you'll be able to run away. But, I know that pepper spray isn't a cure-all, but it's better than nothing and certainly socially acceptable by the public. This is achievable. So let's push the narrative. A narrative that people will actually support and that will actually make us safer. Concealed carry licensing may have their benefits, but let's get real here and let's make an actual difference that we can actually achieve. I know some of you won't like what I'm saying, but it's all about baby steps. Rome wasn't built in a day.